Okay, guys, thank you for joining me today. This is the Angryprepper. Today's episode is probably going to be a little morbid, right? A little down. We're going to talk about dealing with death during the apocalypse, right? During a disaster or war, whatever you want to call it. We're going to talk about basically handling it. And I don't want to say getting over it because you can't get over people that pass away, right? So a lot of us have lost someone in a lifetime, whether it was a friend, family member, someone you knew in passing. We've all lost somebody, right? So I came up with this subject, or wanted to do the subject today. It just hit me early this morning. And I said, I was thinking about my nephew, right? So my nephew passed away back in March. He was hit by a car and he was killed. And watching everyone break down and become sad and try to deal with this, try to make sense of it, it had me thinking today, because I was thinking about him, it had me thinking today, how would we deal with those kind of loss in shit hits the fan scenario, right? And it came to me that after thinking about it for about an hour or so, I think you just have to move on. In a survival situation, I think you have to just push forward. Now, we are not in a survival situation, so it's easy for a lot of us to sit there and think about the person we just lost and just, all the things you could have said, didn't say, the things you said to one another, the times you had. You think about all of that now because we're in a relaxed state, if you will. But thinking about him today had me thinking, what if that would have happened to one of my kids in a shit hits the fan scenario? What have I done? What have I dealt with it? Would I have sat down and died? Would have I cried myself to oblivion? And the answer to that is you don't know, right? For any one of us who are going to sit there and say, well, if I lose someone, I'm just going to move forward, you're full of shit. You're really full of shit because you're not going to know until it happens, right? My nephew dying, that was unexpected. That came out of left field. And it crushed all of us. So we all dealt with it in our ways, though today it hit me a little harder. I guess I was just in a mood today, and I was thinking about him. And I said, he wouldn't, not that he wouldn't want me to mope around. He wouldn't. I mean, I know he wouldn't want me to mope around, but you have to keep moving forward. You can't sit down and die, right? And again, he was my nephew, so he wasn't my kid. He was my sister's kid. And she has to get up every morning and deal with this. Every morning for the rest of her life, she has to deal with this. How are you going to deal with it, right? Are you going to push forward? Are you going to sit down and ponder it? Are you going to give yourself some time to think about it and then move forward? I mean, it's never going to leave. No matter you lose your wife, your husband, your kids, your parents, your grandparents in a shit hits the fan scenario. I guess it also depends on how they die, right? I mean, if a kid is dying from cancer, you know where the end game is coming and you know when it's coming. So you're not caught off guard, right? But if your kid went missing because he went to a store and was never found again, that's unexpected. That's something you're not going to see. But how do you deal with that in a shit hits the fan scenario? Do you sit there and think, shit, anything can happen, anyone can die, and so you start conditioning your brain to think that way? Or do you think, I'm not going to let anyone die, and I'm going to do my best to protect them? With me, I think both ways, right? I think I'm going to do my greatest to protect my family during the shit hits the fan scenario, but you can't plan it out to where they all survive. And if one of them dies, you fall apart. You have to have in the back of your head that someone could die. You could die. Someone in your family could die. In your shit hits the fan scenario, you can't sit there and say you're going to stand on a mountaintop with your rifle and protect everyone. Nothing goes according to plan when shit falls apart. All right, nothing. So no matter how many times we've prepared for hurricanes and snowstorms and and tornadoes, something always happens, right? Something always breaks down. So dealing with death, it's going to be your ultimate test, your ultimate breakdown point eventually. You're probably going to wind up pushing past it when it happens, and then 3 months later, it's going to hit you like a ton of bricks. Or 6 months later, it's going to hit you like a ton of bricks, right? But now, at least if it happens later, at least you got through the hard part. You got through, hopefully, that survival portion of surviving the shit hits the fan scenario. And then you deal with it then. Again, sitting around thinking about it, just thinking about a video to do today, and then that popped in my head. Now, I did have another video planned, and then this one popped in my head, so I said, fuck it. Let's just talk about it. Because no one's talking about it. No one wants to talk about it. Nobody wants to talk about the reality of prepping or shit's defense scenario overall, whatever you want to call it. The reality is you could die or you could lose somebody. And I think that's the worst part. You dying can scare you because if you die, what happens to your family, right? But what happens if somebody in your family dies? What do you do? These are the questions that you have to ask yourself. You have to have a contingency plan in your head. You have to have a backup thought process in your head because you might need to push past it, right? In movies, when people die, it's weird because they'll die and in the next scene, they're like, they're getting in a fight and they're making obnoxious movie comments and you're like, man, the guy just lost his wife, but he's like, he's, sitting at a bar having a good time. And I guess that is life. I guess you do get over it. But, movies portray it really shittily, except The Road. The Road, Viggo Mortensen's character was carrying the burden of his wife being dead and him trying to protect his kid. And you could see that he was carrying that burden because he often thought about his wife and what was going on when everything was breaking down. And at least that movie conveyed his feeling sad about losing his wife and the way she went, which was giving up. So, how are you guys going to tackle this should it happen? Again, I know a lot of you are going to probably stop midway through. Some of you are going to watch this thing all the way through. But again, it's something you should think about. It's a subject that needs to be talked about. And at the very least, on your level, it needs to be thought of. All right? Anyway, guys, sorry for this morbid subject, but thought I had to get out there. At least I wanted to get it off my chest. So, this is the Angry Prepper. Thank you for watching.